The Life of Ronald Haag by Ben Spittler and James Huber. Ronald Haag was born on September 27, 1949, in the small town of Lebanon, Pennsylvania. Growing up in Lebanon, he worked part-time at the Richland Shoe Factory. As a child, Mr. Haag always dreamed of joining the Marine Corps and making a difference in the world. His opportunity would come to achieve his dream in the Vietnam War. At the young age of 18, he enlisted in the Marine Corps, willing to serve in Vietnam for his country. Mr. Haag says that he enlisted because he wanted to see the world and to help the people that badly needed it. He spent 19 rough weeks training for war, including basic training in Parris Island and training for his MOS in North Carolina. While at North Carolina, Mr. Haag trained and learned the skills required to be a combat engineer, which was his role while serving. After these rough weeks of training, he was given a small time of about a month to relax in California before being deployed.
When you graduated there, then you went to North Carolina and you learned your MOS. You went to school. Mine was a combat engineer. I mainly worked with explosives. I was a minesweeper. I would clear the roads so convoys could go up and down the roads. Build bridges. I built one bridge. You learned all that in training at North Carolina.
In December of 1968, he was sent to Vietnam to fight the communistic northern Vietnamese and to provide help to the southern Vietnamese that were being attacked by the communists. He arrived in Da Nang, where all American troops were first sent, and was then sent to Tam Kỳ and Hill 63. This is where he would be stationed for the war. One of the hardest parts of adjusting to life in Vietnam was the extreme weather. He faced conditions including monsoons, extreme heat, and thick jungle foliage. Many insects, including mosquitoes, were also a problem. Mr. Haag's duty in Vietnam was as a minesweeper. This wasn't the only job he did, however. Mr. Haag had many other important roles, including patrolling around the camp and helped to build bridges that would be used for transportation of U.S. equipment and troops. Although he never experienced a major battle, every day he dealt with the threat of death and attack. He described war as just being shot at. He would minesweep roughly 12 miles a day using a 1x1 mine detector and was always in danger of death, either from exploding mines or sniper fire. The worst part of minesweeping for him was the fact that you had to do it alone, as many times a Viet Cong fighter would be hiding nearby. If more than one man was near a mine, the mine would be blown up. But if just one person was there, the mine wouldn't be blown up, in hopes that it would be missed by the minesweepers and later hit by more men. This added a very scary element to minesweeping.
So you patrolled basically every day?
No, I would say 3 times a week. You got a turn, and there were usually 9 guys, and we would just take turns. You know, every third night I would go out.
He also had guard duty or patrol duty roughly 3 times a week. The scariest part of his service was the patrols and minesweeping. He described it as very scary and very dark. Sniper fire was also an ever-present issue. Almost every day someone would get shot at. Although troops were given free time back at camp to relax, there wasn't much to do. So Mr. Haag spent his free time talking to fellow men in his camp, learning about their lives and who they were. This talking led to friendships that Mr. Haag still has to this very day, and he describes the fellow men in his camp as the best group of guys you would hope to be around. After over a year of serving in Vietnam, in July of 1970, he finally returned home to Lebanon. His rank at the time of arriving home was Lance Corporal, and he received multiple awards for his service, including the National Defense Service Medal, the Vietnam Service Medal with 1 star, the Vietnam Campaign Medal, the Combat Action Medal, the Cross, the Gallant Treatment Palm, and the Marksman Medal. Although many Southern Vietnamese had been saved by American involvement and many lives had been changed, in many ways the war had not been won. Communism was not stopped, but slightly slowed down, and many American troops had been killed or wounded in the war. Media coverage also exploited the evils of war, and many Americans back home saw the American troops as being cruel and unreasonable. This is far from the truth, though. Many of the poor villagers would talk to the troops. Mr. Haag remembers one small boy in particular who would sell ice pops to the troops as they were returning through the village from minesweeping for 50 cents. Although American troops were very good to the villagers, this was not the way it was seen back home. Possibly for this reason, unlike other wars, his arrival home was not met with gratitude. In fact, nearly all Americans despised veterans at the time, calling them baby killers and murderers. For everything that Mr. Haag gave for his country, he was ridiculed and forced to live as if it never happened. Troops in Vietnam were forced to return home and readjust to civilian life, acting as if nothing had ever happened and burying the events of the war for years. He recalls experiencing much anger upon his arrival, anger at the government for not winning the war, anger at the American citizens for not respecting what happened in Vietnam. Even though Mr. Haag experienced every intense and scary conditions in Vietnam and nasty backlash upon returning home, he is glad that he served his country. He is glad to have helped the people and to have made a difference. Although he no longer faces criticism, he is forced to live with the effects of the war. Even though he was never injured from bullets or anything else in service, he does still face dangers from the war to this day. Exposure to Agent Orange, the chemical used by the American troops to defoliate the thick jungles, has made him fully disabled, and he has had to battle many health issues from his exposure, including diabetes and failing heart. Not until recently has the government passed a law recognizing the effects of Agent Orange and what it did to many of the men who served in Vietnam. Although the public originally disagreed with soldiers in Vietnam, Mr. Haag feels that he is now receiving the respect that veterans from Vietnam deserve. In the last 20 years, he feels that the public opinion of the war has changed from anger at soldiers to gratitude towards soldiers. Although Mr. Haag had gone through a lot in his year of service, he is glad that he enlisted to go into Vietnam and says that he would do it again if he could go back in time. He is currently retired and living in Lebanon. He still keeps in contact with some of his friends from his service. To this day, Mr. Haag stands as a reminder of what it takes for this country to be free, and that true Americans stand up for what is right and are always willing to serve their country, no matter what the consequences are.
Do you think going into Vietnam was a good idea?
I try and justify it in my mind that it was, yes, because it did help the people, and that's the biggest thing in today's world, to help people that need it.